Thank you for joining us. You're about ready to see a couple of media partners who are going to share their perspectives on storytelling. Why are they in media? Why did they create their platforms to share stories? How are their stories making a difference? And what they're going to do and how they're going to level up to continue to share others' experiences, their perspectives, their true, authentic, transparent life experiences with as big of a platform as possible so that we can continue to connect human beings and we can continue to find one love if possible, agree to disagree. So hang tight, you're going to meet some of our media partners. Hey, you guys. I always say I love people in the room. I've got two hosts here, two media representatives here, super cool people, but you two really are like two really cool people in my look at me, not lying. I'm really not. All right. So you guys are in the house. I just want to, first of all, kind of give a little heads up of who you are and what you do and those types of things. But first of all, I want to just give you an introduction, you guys, that they are also media partners of mine. So it's really important that I celebrate them and lift them up and tell you how great they are. And then you can reach out to them and see how they can help you. All that family shit. All right, let's get going. So Martine Emmons down here in the corner with her beautiful salmon color on. She hosts Transformation with Martine on Transformation Talk Radio. Compromise nothing, conquer everything. Did I get that?
Conquer everything, compromise nothing. However you say it.
What? Oh, see, look at me going backwards. Okay, so I'm going to say it. Laress, best-selling author, certified transformational coach, mentor. She was doing lots of virtual assisting. Are you still doing that?
I am. What I'm doing, though, is getting people speaking engagements. That's more of what I do now.
I know. I want to tell people that if they need to set up a TED Talk, like Martine is your girl, she's really passionate about it and she can jump through all those hoops. So I'm going to give you contact information on a screen here soon, and then it'll be in the contact comment section as well. All right. She loves staying active in all areas of her life. She likes to travel. She likes the beach, those types of things. Now, Andy up in the corner. Oh, my brother. All right. Andy is also a podcast host, Own Your Awkward, best-selling author and creator of Awkward Journal series and Own Your Awkward Life Changes. Did I do that one?
Yes, you did. You got it.
It's hard being me. Okay. He's a motivational speaker, business and life change coach. And guess what? He is also a comedian. So you can see him around the Northwest being his little comedian, running the stages, not the streets.
Fair. There are times where both happen, I suppose.
The main thing with these two guys, you're transparent as hell. You've gotten to that place in both of your lives where you not only are transparent with your own stories, but you're also, we attract like-minded people, right? So you guys are also lifting up those people who are being transparent, authentic, real. And so that's why we're here today. I want to ask you first, so let's go around the house while I get my coffee. Andy, what got you into being behind the mic? So wanting to interview and talk to other storytellers, what was that transition?
Well, for me, I went through some major life changes about 7 years ago and realized the importance of getting my story out there. And to be honest, I got a little bored with my story. Like I just realized, not so much like if I'm going to help people, if I'm going to reach people, I need to make it bigger than myself. So I really, it just became important to me that if I'm going to stand on this platform of owning your awkward, I can only tell my story so much in so many different ways to where there's only so many lessons to be had there. And while I'm always learning, I'm learning more from other people. So I wanted to learn who else has gone through this. What other things did other people have to own and become transparent with so that people can have that example and really have just one place to go and go, oh, we're all living the same, challenges in a lot of ways with different faces on the front. And it's the heart of the issue is much different.
And it just dawned on me when you were talking that a comedian, I mean, that's kind of what you're doing is telling stories and other people's stories and ripping on them or whatever you're doing, right? Like more naturally in the sense of, do you ever walk away after a show or somebody in the audience where you're just like, oh, there's a story to tell? Like, how do you not want to just walk out into the audience and say, let's get your story out there, or can I interview you? Or do you?
Yeah, well, a lot of times in comedy, sometimes you don't see the audience very much. There's not a ton of interaction with the audience.
That's true.
But there's definitely I have that happen a lot in whatever's happening in my daily life. So then I take it to the stage. It's like, I ran into this situation. More of what I joke about is my own thing and my own perspective on what's going on. But I do find that there's a lot of humor in the interactions that I have with people, and a lot of it is feeding off of where they're coming from, as opposed to my expectation or experience.
Yeah, you two are, Andy's an author. Martine and I have known each other for a couple years. Our radio show is at the same station, and she has written some stories for some projects that I've been doing. And it's different, isn't it, to write your own and then to talk about somebody else's. Martine, can you share with us how it's different, how you got into podcasting and radio show? I want to hear as well, but how different is it to write your own and then ask about it?
I'd say like the first project we did together, it was super scary for me, because it was one of those things like, oh gosh, I wasn't going to write my story until somebody was gone from this earth. But I did it anyway, knowing that it probably could help somebody, and the fact that he probably won't read it anyway. So whatever, my story is more important. Helping others is more important. So that's why I wanted to get it out there. And then now just sharing other people's stories, it's everything. It's everything. What you can do to touch other people's lives, and it's like, oh yeah, this happened to me, but oh my God, check out this.
I know.
Look what this person went through. This is a lot of what you've gone through. And you know what? You're not alone. Look at this.
It's so true. TED Talks, we'll go to that for a second. And then Andy, you're up on stage too. You get this. So back in the day, I said this on the one of the other shows I did last week, is that we always were attached to our professional resume. Hi, I'm Peggy. This is what I did in 1989. This is where I am. And these are my acronyms after my name. Hey, let's have fun. But now in the past, I don't know, 10 years-ish, especially through TED Talks, they've really had that education saying, just hit the stage running and just go right into a story. They know who you are. They know what ticket they're paying for. And so storytelling started to be kind of that buzzword. And for me, what helps me with you guys to say, get your stuff out there, and me too, is to jump over to our lifestyle, lifetime, real life Knox resume. Right. I mean, that's what you did, Andy. I mean, you really just said 7 years ago, I mean, you have your own story there, and just said, I'm flying forward.
Yeah. And, for me, I wanted to be a speaker since I was a kid. I always kind of looked up when you'd have the motivational speaker in an event, or you'd see people on TV, but I never felt like I had a story worth telling. And until, I went through those changes, I realized it doesn't matter what your story is. It matters that you're sharing it, and people will find the parts of your story that resonate and that are important and that are inspiring to them, even if you don't see that in the moment.
It's huge. I think that's why I'm so turned on with these compilation books, which, of course, I think the one that we were all introduced to 20 years ago was Chicken Soup of the Soul. And, they were turned down like, I don't know, 300,000 times. It was extensive. And that was back in the day where you would literally turn in your transcript, like it would go in the mail, and you would do a self-paid, self-addressed envelope. And I remember when I was submitting my books, it was like I made the envelopes green and then red, and would do, like, when I was headed to the Ellen show, I was like, I'm going to do things of her and Portia all over the outsides. I sent one every day because you're trying to get attention.
Yeah.
And then you get that letter back that said, thanks, whatever. And today, now that you can upload your own stories and things like that, everybody's kind of doing it. But Andy, to speak to what you just said, when you go off and write your own story in your own book, it can be lonely, right? You're suffering that big box thing where, all by yourself, where you have that agent potentially and that editor, and they're pushing back and they're going, what are you talking about? I don't like this. And you lose your voice. But with a compilation book, we're kind of all in it together ish, right? And it's so, Martine, when you've done some anthologies for sure, how has that been? What have you learned from others? What have you shared to others or on your show? Or what's the connection of having 40 authors in the last book you were in?
I love it because there's a different story each chapter. You can just pick one up and each night read a chapter, and then just kind of let that marinate and think what you got from that. Maybe share that with someone else, and then you go to the next one. And each page you have something different, which to me is much more fun. A lot of my book reading is now by Audible, But these books, I actually like the books to actually read. And I even like turning the page, not just on my Kindle here. I really like turning the page.
Yeah.
And
And that's,
there's something about it.
I've told people that, we're either auditory, visual, or kinesthetic, and you've got the Kindle version, and we all should probably just have it. I mean, we're on the plane, train, automobile, and these stories, you can reread them. It's funny because it reminds me sometimes of the Bible, where you pick it up and it's like, what's that phrase? What's that verse? And let's pretend Andy's story doesn't hit you the first time around, but a year from now, you're like, whoa. But you have the Audible, you can have the Kindle version, you have the flip book version. Yeah, that's cool. What you said sparked me back to Andy. Is this the first anthology or compilation book you've been a part of? Have you done a lot of multi?
Yeah, this is the first full book that I've been a part of like this. Yeah.
How has the experience been for you as a media partner? Or, I mean, you got kind of.
Oh, it's been great. You are just amazing at promoting and getting it out there and pulling everybody together. I mean, that's a huge piece of it, is like you said, herding cats. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I'm one of the cats. Because I was coming up with on the for some reason I had a little bit later in my head when I said, oh yeah, this is great. I've got, a couple months also, I was like, oh wait, no. But when I remember writing my story, and you make it very easy. It's like, grab something you have, pull a story. And I thought, oh, I've got plenty to pull from. And then I go look at the stuff to pull from. And I just like, this doesn't quite feel right. That doesn't quite, like nothing just felt like the thing. And when I sat down to write it, it actually was, I was writing about a pretty raw time in my life. And so it really put me into this soul searching deep dive for a week of like, oh, we're re-going into this journey where I'm ripping open these journals I haven't read for a few years. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize what space I was in. And then submitting it, I had this thought of like, what's interesting is you don't know what everyone else, what angle their story is coming from, what tone, what mood. And you think, I had this moment of, well, is this going to fit in? Is it the right thing? Is it what you're looking for? But I had to just realize you're looking for everyone's story. You're not looking for them to be the same. You're looking for them to be different.
No, I am not looking for them to be the same. Mark Reed did the same thing. So he's a writer of ours out of Japan. And I think you know him, Andy.
Yes.
And he said the same thing. He said yes. And then he said, oh shit. It's like, don't know. But his main thing was really similar to yours, is because I keep these stories a secret. For the first time in this book, just as a little teaser, I'm coming out in I'm going to wait probably about 2 or 3 more days. But I'm just going to release the titles. Okay. And I'm going to say, here's the heart chapter. What up? And I'm just to kind of get everybody excited, because I work really hard to pull out of you guys cool titles.
Yeah.
And to wrap them into the end of the story. But Mark kind of said the same thing, not knowing any of the other stories. He contacted me after and he's like, I really don't know if this is a fit. Like, and I'm like, there's no way that it's not.
Yeah.
I've had people ask if we're at the screening phase, right? So we only do 30 authors, and then we offer for the media partners to do a story. So they're like, are you at the phase where you turn stories away, or you vet stories, or stories don't fit? And we're right there. I do vet everybody, because there's just some that just might not be. Some catfish out there might not be. But there are some people that once they start this process, that's not for them either, right? And also, and I'll push and push a little bit until they get where you are, Andy, or even Martine. We handheld, because I want you guys to have your voice. You guys that are listening, please, if you're writing for somebody, if you're doing blogging, if you're doing white papers, if you're feeling this, it might not be the partner to work with if it's so much trying to tell you, well, that doesn't make sense. Don't use that too many times, when you're trying to express it. But I think the main thing that I have said to everybody is, if I can sense you're headed somewhere, if I can sense that cathartically you're going to enjoy it, and I want your energy around me, so that's a big deal. As much as this work can be, it's like, do I even want to deal with this shit? Because there's a couple that I've turned away. So I would just say that for you guys, or let me ask this question. When you interview people, or you look for people to interview, do you do any type of personality vetting, or, you have the book or the do you do any of that? Andy, speak first. What do you?
Well, so I will tell you, when I first started having my podcast, I asked people, and I asked them very personal things about what their awkward is they've had to own. And I had a couple people who reached out and was like, oh, I'd love to get on your podcast. And I didn't do too much vetting because I was just eager and I was excited to have people on. And I got into a couple interviews where it was just dry. And I thought, oh my gosh, what did I agree to? And so now I don't necessarily do a pre-interview with everybody, but I definitely scope them out, make sure that I know what I'm getting into before I have them on the show. Because it's the quality of what I'm delivering to my people. And I want people who are willing to be transparent, share a bit of their soul, and not just get on and say, well, my awkward thing was that I decided I want to start this business I want to tell you about right now. And let me tell you how awkward it was to get that going. And I'm like, that's not what we're here for. We're here to promote you, but by letting people get to know the heart and soul of you. So it is important to have people that you vibe with and connect with. And fortunately for me, I keep meeting people like you, and now I know Martine, and it's like the community grows, and it continues to cultivate like-minded people. So it makes it very easy.
I love that. That's exactly how I feel. Martine, are you at the place where you're doing some vetting or catching a vibe or looking at other people's podcasts? Or
I don't have anybody on the show without connecting first. Everybody is interviewed first, pre, and I'm pretty good with trusting my intuition. I wasn't always, but there was one person that I thought, I like her story, but I'm not so sure I want her on the show. We had a little bit of a conversation. I thought, let's do a pre-record in case it doesn't work out. Most of my shows are live.
That's
And
exactly.
boy, am I glad I did that. We stopped, and it was just like this, because like when I go to a commercial break or whatever, I will like we convene, like I want to head this way or whatever, and she was just like, I don't like where this is going, and I don't want to answer that, and I'm like, you knew right away that my show was about vulnerability, about expressing yourself, about stories of the heart, human resilience. Yeah, we can just stop right here. And I'm
That's
so
really
grateful
good.
I wasn't live and had to deal with that. So I'm really good about that. And that taught me that if I don't feel right about something, I don't want them on them.
Yeah, exactly. Andy said something that's really important, and it took me a few years to get to this place, but you also have your audience, and we start these things by wanting to get our own message out there, just straight up. It comes from our passion and purpose. If you want to be a speaker or a podcaster, radio show host, it has to be driven by this person's passion first, right? And then it comes to a place where you're like, well, did I have fun? What was that all about? But it also comes to my following an audience that builds up. And I do kind of the same thing that Martine does. I do more of going out and seeing their previous interviews, right? So I can get a kind of a little bit of a vibe. And I also make sure that I don't release any questions to them. But I do my homework and I have all my questions, but I want to make sure that they're different than all the other 80 interviews that they've done, because not only are they going to be in my library, but I'm sure they want something that's, when's your book come out? When's your book come out? When's your book? It's just like it gets to be too much. If an author wants to contact you guys, I'm going to put the contact information in the comment section and on the screens coming up. But what is literally the best way? Is it email? Is it LinkedIn? Andy, go first. What's the best way?
I would say not LinkedIn. Email is great. You can reach out to LinkedIn, but that just gets bogged down with spam type things. So, email is a great way. You can also set up a chat through my website at awkwardcareer.com, and there's a link right there to connect me and set up a time to have a discussion.
Is there any genre lane that you're seeking, or that you really that's just grown? Like, I know you're in the awkward, tell your story. We all fit in it, but.
Well, honestly, for me, I specifically try to have the most broad range of people, because I want people to see somebody from every walk of life. And my whole mission is that you see people where you're like, gosh, Peggy's doing awesome stuff. Can you believe she struggled with that? Wow, that's like, I see her at this space. And if I know that she's had something that she either has or still has in the back of her head, that gives me the strength and purpose to say, hey, I can do this. And that's why I purposely want to make sure I have authors, speakers, entertainers, everyday people of any walk of life. So.
Because everybody has a story. And in the couple of the first questions, I put frequently asked questions on my website on the author page, because several of them, when we did the first book of everybody, the first two questions that were so common is, what am I going to talk about? Like, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. And I'm like, okay, you're 58. We can certainly find something to say. And then those things that kind of fall out that people don't expect, because I think when you hold somebody safe, and you know, with you guys who are interviewing, if I'm interviewed by you, I want to feel safe. I want to feel that you respect me, right? Because we in this industry that we've been in corporate America, we've all three of us been in there. It was all about, even if you had to earn an Emmy and act like you got it going on, there wasn't a lot of like, hey, do you want to work with me? I don't really have it going on. I'm kind of a shit show right now. I just had a breakdown a month ago, because that's like, do I want to work with her? I think that's shifting a bit since COVID. Mental health is kind of talked about a little bit more. Andy, when you said that we look at somebody on social media and we have this image, that front, that kind of, wow, they're out there, they're busy, they're doing this. I mean, that's what life is about. And then you get to know somebody and you're like, wow, they're struggling, right? Martine, can you give me a little bit of a teaser on what your first book story was, the first published story? I think it's really important. Just a couple
I have
sentences.
the second one in my head right now.
Well, yeah, they can go find it. It was about your move and the parental. Remember, you kind of left and headed to San Francisco or wherever it was.
Well, yeah, I'm trying even to think of the title of the darn thing right now. Yeah, like I said, the second book is in there, but it was more like the beginning of my life and what I went through, and leaving home at 17 and going out on my own to
yeah, I'm like, it's here somewhere, but I'm in a hotel. I don't really know where, so whatever.
That's okay.
You want to transfer to the second story? Because I mean, that was
that's okay. That's okay. It's kind of coming to me, but yeah, just going out on my own at 17, it was scary. And my dad dropped me off, and he had like a mattress for me and a couple things in the back of his little tiny truck. And it was storming, and coming home or into my new place, and he dropped me off, and I was going to live with my half sister I'd only met once. And there was nothing in the apartment. It was just me, and trying to feel my way through the dark. No power was on yet, trying to find a bedroom, put my wet mattress down, and just like, oh my gosh, wow, here I am again in the dark.
Yep.
And
your second story was about your mom's illness and going through that, dementia. Which everybody dementia, they'll see in the book. Those are really transparent, because obviously your dad's still with you. And Andy, your story, can you give us a little teaser on your story for the book?
Yeah, so my story is, I'll just tell you, I mentioned earlier I flipped my life upside down. I made a lot of changes, and that for me included getting divorced, coming out, not living with my kids anymore. And about a year and a half later, I'm sitting in this space of, life was supposed to be better. Why is it harder? Why am I feeling worse, depressed, and lost, when I, in some ways, have this contrast? And I had to set some time aside to go on a little journey to really, journey to the center of finding myself, essentially, and really just sit in some silence. And it was very healing.
You didn't know what was on the other side per se, but if you're yucky here and then I get there, you're like, because I always say, everywhere I go, I am. So it doesn't matter if I'm sitting on a beach in a lovely place, I am. If I'm still a mess, or I'm in Greece, or I'm in Colorado, it's like my stuff's it's still there. Your story, you guys are such good story writers. And it's just Christopher Rausch was on one of my shows the other day. And as a writer, it also helps us in the media when we take on how colorful can it be, how descriptive, what does it smell like? Because in the media, we tend to not really think so much that way, because we're timed. We got 30 minutes, we got 60 minutes, hit the heavy high stuff and hope they have some energy. But when you start to write, I think it then comes back to how you talk better when you're behind the mic, because I am all about sprinkling stuff on and making it feel like coffee talk and enjoy storytelling. So after putting this book out, and it's going out on Flag Day, and the other things that you've done, and even with the first book, Andy, did it change how you were a podcaster and ask questions? Did it circle back around after you got your book out?
Are you asking myself
Yeah,
that?
no, you, Andy, because when you published your
Yeah.
Awkward book, did it make you a different interviewer?
It definitely did, because I realized that getting to the heart of some of the questions require asking things that are sometimes addressing the most basic sensory things, like, just even as simple as, so you just had this life thing happen. Instead of going, oh, well, what were your next steps? It changes my mindset to, well, gosh, who did you call first? Or what did you do? Did you even feel like eating for 6 hours? Or what was the first sound that you remember hearing? Just basic things that are more human.
Exactly. Yeah. Make it so that, the one sitting on the couch, it does change their, like, we don't think about that. I know after I had the hurricane, and we had no power I think I talked to Martine about this. We had no power. We had no connection with the outside world. And when I came back into it, the thing I did is I just, I grabbed my phone and I'm like, okay, did anyone see if I was alive? Text, email, Facebook, and I'm going like this in the backyard, and I'm like going back, and I'm going 27. I helped thousands of people, and 27 people checked in on me. And I went through like 25 minutes of why do I work 17 hours a day? But in media, I want to get this message across, really important to storytellers or anybody doing media. You have to write, you have to talk without caring if there's an emoji or caring if there's a comment, because I can tell you what, when you shut it down and you're taking a break, going on vacation, all of a sudden you're like, I've been following you for 3 years. This really? Like, could you tell me that? So as media people, I want you guys, don't give up because you're not getting this, but it's also your responsibility. I hate to say it, but be on social media, drive the weird emojis, use the wow emoji, make a comment, put in the comment section over and over some of the questions that you've asked or how to contact them. So in media, it's our responsibility to promote ourselves, that we are doing the damn thing, but also promote who's on the show. Have you changed that at all over the last 1.5 to 2 years? What about you, Martine? What about, as your marketing to solicit people or help other people ramped up? Are you seeing what social media is doing? Like, we got to really be in there. What are your thoughts?
I think social media is really it's kind of a tough thing these days. People are so saturated with so many things that you really have to get creative. Instead of doing stories, you got to do reels. I mean, there's different things that you have to do to really get people's attention. But I definitely am about lighting other people up, like giving them, sometimes I'm deep in my work and I have to find that space, but I really want to make sure that everybody is heard, seen. It's important to me. I sure want to do that for everybody else, and our message, collaboratively.
So this is a cyclical conversation, because it's very much about, these are the media partners and these are why they do it. And they're about telling stories, but it's really important for us to be vulnerable at this point in time, the three of us. Are there areas in your business, if I were to say to you, what do you hate? What do you need help doing? What is the area that you're like, hey, help me? If people are watching this and they want to reach out to you, Andy, and they love doing blank, what area is it that you need to grow?
The big area, and this is my focus for the year, because I seem to go through these cycles where I find, like, I level up and I get to a space and I say, oh, that's what's holding me back, and now I need to focus on that. And this year it's really been my sales process, and really being confident and saying, you know what, I deliver a great message when I'm on stage. I have a great story. People are excited when I'm there, and having the conversation ahead of time with that confidence. And I, just in the last 6 months have been in a place where I can say that. And, you've seen me speak, it's, I don't get bad feedback when I speak, yet I
And
give
you don't
myself.
have 10 TED Talks in the next 5 years, I'm going to smack you. You are
Well,
so vibrant on the stage when you speak and interactive and things that you do. I want to, I'm not going to coach you right now for this second, but I have been asking everybody if there's a commitment that you can make to me in the rest of the year as a storyteller, as a media person or whatever. And for you, can you consider sharing some of those stories of when you have to sell yourself, or in the sense of like, hey, I was on Fifth Street at this conference and, or, you know, or this, would you share some of those specifics?
yeah, like for myself, I guess this ties into being authentic and being transparent, is that I always want to make sure I'm not putting a false image forward. So whenever I get a compliment or I say, hey, this is what's great, it's always like, but you know, just so you know, I haven't done this, or I might forget a word here. Like, I want to make sure people know exactly what they're getting. And I forget that that's not the game you play in sales. And so I've been practicing putting practices in place that are processes that work, that are transparent and authentic, and very much, this is what you're going to get. This is who I am. If you love that, take me. And if not, I'm not for you.
Why you need to do blogging so we can
Right.
get those little short things out, right? Because
Exactly.
I mean, Martine, what about you? What is a thought of growth that you can commit to me in the next year, that media wise, that you're going to do? Any thoughts?
I wrote, is that 2022 is my year of no resistance, no force, complete trust, surrender, gratitude, flow. I'm taking that more into this year. I didn't do it last year, this year, that when I'm approached by somebody or the work that I want to do, kind of like Andy is saying, it's like, if I'm not comfortable with something, I'll tell you. And I'm always eager to learn something new, but I need time. But I'm utmost integrity. This is what I can do. And this, not so good. But if we want to work on it, fine. Or if I really don't want to do it, I'll let you know. I am all about trusting what feels right and how I know I can put you out there, whether it's a TED Talk, whether it's the women I work for, entrepreneurs, and getting them speaking engagements, not just TED, but speaking engagements, and getting people heard. I make sure that they know, and I'm upfront about what I can do for them.
I love that. I don't think I've heard that very often, especially with two people in the room here, that, you know, it is about talking about some of those voids and having, not necessarily struggles, but the areas that we're focusing on, and making sure it's not coming from a place of too much lack of confidence or those types, because it's true we need to be transparent, but then that becomes our story. Like, oh yeah, you know, they don't have the confidence, or they don't. I mean, I love that you guys are transparent and just like, hey, this is where I excel. Take it or leave it. This is me.
Yeah.
Over here, not so much.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not talking about recipes.
Sometimes.
Well,
you just know it's run its course. You don't want to anymore. I don't want to do social media for anybody anymore. I stopped that part of my
advance. Yeah, you level it. You keep leveling up. What were you going to say, Andy?
I just think one big lesson for me this year has been to learn that it's important to remember that the parts that you don't bring to the table don't diminish your value.
Right.
It's like, there's so much more value over here that, yeah, I might not be your main contributor in this area, but that's because this is where my value is. And it doesn't mean that I'm worth less.
Yeah.
And it goes by so fast. See what I'm saying? That's
Right.
where, as media partners that have been working with Marcus and I just want to say that I do the same thing. I have to see a vibe before I would even talk to anybody to be on the team or to share something. And Andy and I only met a couple of months ago, and it was in person. It was at this other conference, and I saw him across the room. It was a couple of day conference. And I immediately said, before I leave in 48 hours, he is going to be a media partner of mine, and he's going to write a story, because it was vibe. You know, you want to create that tribe. And I know you guys have two hats with us with this book, and I really appreciate it, because it's two different things, you know. All right. We're going to leave it at this, and I'm going to make sure that everybody reaches out to you, and we'll just circle back. And
email is best for me too. I don't hardly pay attention to LinkedIn. That may not be the best thing to admit, but I don't.
I'll put it up on the screen, and then we can put it in the comment section. And I really appreciate you guys. If there's anything that I can do, obviously, reach out to me. But you're great at what you do. So
Thank you.
carry on, soldier.
You are awesome.
I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye. Talk to you guys.
Bye.
Bye.